Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Township Board for Monday, March 4th, 2019. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Hayson, Hersey,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Roberts,
Here.
Wu,
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the previous two meetings, February 4th and February 18th. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Dennis. Are there any corrections? Bill?
Yeah, I have one on, let's see, the bottom of page 1. Toward the bottom of that last paragraph says Mr. Axelrod added that he looked at data provided by Trustee Brown, data noting that the national average poverty rate is 12.7% nationally. That's not something I provided. I didn't provide any national numbers, and I don't think he said I did. I think that came from someplace else. I provided numbers about Champaign County, Champaign-Urbana, and poverty among students and things like that, but nothing nationally. So I just delete that sentence.
Okay. Any other corrections? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. Any additions to the agenda? Okay. Public participation for the Cunningham Town Board. Okay, seeing none. Committee to verify bills.
So town bills for March 4th. In the town fund, we had $54,834.13 in expenditures. In the general assistance fund, we had $87,680.47 in expenditures. And that is a total of $142,514 and 60 cents.
Any questions? Is there a motion to accept the bills?
So moved.
Moved by Mary Alice.
Second.
Seconded by Eric. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion passes. Reports of officers.
Sure, and I should have mentioned, actually, I'd like it to be a practice that I also send out the credit card statement. So I sent that to you electronically. In the future, I'll actually include it with the town bills. It was just something that was recommended to me as we were doing a review of our processes, so I will include that. So just briefly, our general assistance participants we're down to 111 from 113 last month, so we're seeing a kind of pretty regular bump up and down, which is encouraging. I was worried that it would continue over the 125 mark. We have 39 participants on the community workfare program, mostly located at Salt and Light. That relationship is going really well. And we actually have several participants who have attended so regularly and have exceeded their hours that we're now working with them on resume building and submitting to a couple open, like Urbana Park District and the Housing Authority both have openings right now. So we're helping folks to apply. We have 3 on the job search track, which means they have already started working, and they're looking to kind of increase their hours, but they still qualify, at least for this month, for general assistance. We have 55 who are disabled. This continues to be our largest population seeking SSI support, and as I mentioned, I brought on an additional part-time person who's now trained in the SOAR process, and she is starting her first case, and she'll probably hold about 2 to 3 cases at a time. We have 35 homeless residents. The homeless are the ones who are actually the hardest to stay in contact with and to kind of engage in the programs. So we're continuing to work on that piece. Our average age is very steady at 48 years old. Homeless assistance, I think you may recall we had a large amount of homeless assistance right before the holidays, 22. Last month it was 8, and this month we assisted 6. So we're seeing it kind of bumping up and down there too, with larger trends around December and August of each year. So we had 2 homeless households moved into housing with rental assistance and 4 avoided homelessness with eviction prevention. 2 things. One is the Housing Authority is we do help a lot of folks get into housing who are Housing Authority voucher holders. And basically the Housing Authority is about to launch a program where they help folks with deposit assistance so that they can pay their deposit over multiple months, and that'll actually take some burden off of the township. So we're really excited about that collaboration. Then Housing a Success Story is we did have a general assistance participant who is facing eviction. She's a very severe case of disability, and she was looking at a street homeless situation. She had no place to go, no family, no support. She was waiting for a Social Security disability determination, which was a pretty obvious determination, but it took a while. She had written proof that we were able to show to the landlord that she was to receive $5,000 or more by the end of the month, and the landlord refused to extend her deadline for payment any further. And in fact, her attorney would not accept a government-issued check from us. We had to do a money order or cashier's check. So she had a letter from a doctor saying she could not be evicted due to her severe health issues. That was inconsequential. So I do want to thank our angel donors, people assuming control of their environment, known as PACE, and Sister Karen and the Community Resource Center at OSF. We all came together in a 48-hour period and were able to raise both loans and grants to help her to stay in housing. And we actually signed it on a Friday at 4 o'clock. We made payment, which was around the time that we thought the sheriff would show up at her door. So it was a very close issue. I am going to speak to the Landlord Association in April, and I do want to tell this story as to illustrate really unnecessary misery that could be avoided if landlords would work with us to get payments. In this case, this landlord did not. And it is a tax credit landlord, so I'm looking into what the kind of consequences of getting tax credits and what the requirements are. But anyway, it's a tragic story, but it's also a success story. It just was quite a bit of work on the part of the community. Wayne, did you have any report? Did you want to make a report? Okay.
Hi, everybody. Regular assessment work is proceeding over in the assessor's office. Our target date is June 15th per statute.
You want to turn on your microphone?
Is that better?
That's better.
Do I need to start over?
Go ahead.
So regular assessment work is proceeding at pace in the assessor's office. Our target date for completion is June 15th per statute. We're continuing to scan and compile existing information from our property record cards, and we still plan to be complete by the end of the calendar year with all of that. That will also include an online property record card lookup for Cunningham Township residents. We have one installation of the new camera system, and we are testing it every day. We will be actually going up for training next week to meet with the vendor, as well as visit Naperville Township to see. They have the same software, and we're going to be looking at how they use theirs. Senior exemption forms are coming in. We sent out over 1,800. We've received about 1,200 of them, so we have a good percentage of those in. And we also started entering and tracking those in the Access database. Before, it was done by hand on paper in a senior exemption binder. Transferring this to a new database has actually cut data entry time almost in half, as well as improve accuracy. As for assessment work, we've identified 9 neighborhoods out of the 21 assessment neighborhoods that we have in the township that we're looking at closer for revalue. 1 neighborhood is completely done. Our township median, as it stands right now, is 32.08, which is about 4% lower than where it should be, but we're going to work to fix that. And we're also doing things to improve our what's considered our coefficient of dispersion. Right now it's about 19%. It should be 15 or below. The only way to really correct that is to reassess, so that's what we're doing. Any questions?
Can you tell us what the coefficient of dispersion is?
Like a dictionary? Like a dictionary definition?
In your context.
Operational definition.
Operational.
Well, because I brought the dictionary definition. I was hoping to be able to use that, but
Go ahead. with that.
the most commonly used statistical measure of uniformity is the coefficient of dispersion, also known as the COD. The COD provides a measure of the variation of the individual assessment ratios around the median level of assessment. Higher CODs indicate that individual ratios vary widely from the median and that properties are not uniformly assessed. This also indicates that the property tax burden is not fairly distributed among taxpayers in that particular region or jurisdiction. And that comes from the Illinois Department of Revenue publication P-Tax 1-E, Intro to Sales Ratio Studies, page 36.
Eric?
Yes, so I've memorized the dictionary definition, but I still need some understanding. And the question I have, the operational question is, how do you arrive at that dispersion index? Because in order to arrive at it, you have to really know what the right answer is. Or maybe let me guess, and then you can tell me. Okay, so you have a certain number of criteria to assess a property's value. Number of bedrooms, number of baths, size of the lot, general condition, et cetera, et cetera. So two houses that are really the same on those indices, and they're in the same neighborhood, same kind of street, whether it's a through street or a cul-de-sac or whatever, they ought to have the same assessment. And so what this dispersion ratio says is that on the average, these houses are actually differing in their assessed value by about 20% or 19%. Have I got that right?
Roughly.
Roughly? Okay.
So in terms of knowing the right answer, we use sales ratio studies and we do 3-year studies. So the right answer is the sales price. And if we compare that sales price to what we have it assessed for, and we want our assessment to be roughly a third of the sales price, right? So right now, our median is 32.08, so it's about 4% below where we want it to be. But also, we're about 20% off of that median at any given moment,
Okay.
and that's what those two numbers mean in combination.
Okay.
Dennis?
So when you're trying to adjust to take some number to where you want it to be, it sounds like that's an artificial change for the assessment. Can you explain how that doesn't become an artificial change?
So previously, the way assessments were done, and actually is going to be the current way until hopefully the quad, is that we put in the characteristics like building size, building type, quality of construction, type of construction, number of bathrooms into our CAMA system, and it spits out a value. You subtract out depreciation, and then you kind of factor from there, right? What we're moving toward is a more statistical way of arriving at the value, where instead of just spitting it in, what we're doing is we're going to let the market tell us how much an extra bathroom is worth, how much an extra bedroom is worth, how much a certain amount of square feet is worth, and so on and so on. So the more
Is that neighborhood? Because, you know, a bathroom could be worth a lot more in certain neighborhoods than others.
yeah, so it'll start off township wide, but then we'll dive deeper into each individual neighborhood, if that makes sense.
Well, I hope you do, because it doesn't sound fair otherwise.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%.
Thanks, Wayne. Is there any unfinished business? Oh, sorry, Bill.
Danielle, I had a couple things.
Oh, yeah, you didn't ask for questions.
One thing I thought of last time but I forgot to ask, now that it's tax season, a lot of people qualify for earned income tax credit, and I wondered how that affected their benefits for one thing, and for another thing, I mean, anybody that did any work, you know, I know most people, a lot of the people didn't work at all, but if they did any work, they could qualify for a refundable tax credit. And so, and also the people working at Salt and Light, do they actually get a check, or is that just work fare where they don't really get paid for that?
I'll answer your last question first. So folks work at Salt and Light 20 hours a month for community work fare. That comes to about 5 hours a week. According to Salt and Light policies, we originally actually had negotiated that they would receive store credit as well as credit. And that was a misunderstanding, I think, amongst their staff. And so their director explained that as per their policy, they can't receive store credit for anything that they're compelled to do. So after the 20 hours, every hour that they work is towards store credit, and a number of our participants work above the 20 hours. We've set it low enough that really it's easy for them to go over the 20 hours because they typically, our participants don't have additional employment. In terms of the earned income tax credit, I'm going to have to look at our general assistance manual to see the impact. We do ask in applications if folks have money coming, and so oftentimes we see that at the time of tax season, a number of people will have too much cash on hand to qualify for general assistance. So we saw that last year, but I have to look at our current participants and see what the impact is. I know that for homeless residents, which is a large portion, they have an asset. Their assets can be up to $1,000, and they're considered it's called an asset disregard. For non-homeless residents, I'm trying to remember, I believe the asset disregard is $675. So, what was your first question?
Yeah, mostly how earned income tax credit impacts their benefits, and if there's, and follow up, I guess, if there's any way we can help them manage that. Probably they aren't getting thousands of dollars back because they wouldn't qualify for general assistance then. But if they earned, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 last year and then got laid off, they could be getting hundreds back anyway. If there's any way we can encourage them to use that to prepay rent or you know, anything we could do to make sure that if it does impact their benefits, it would just be for a month or so, and just or to apply it somehow into some future expense training or whatever. I don't know.
I appreciate that you raised the issue because my intuition is that a number of our participants do not submit tax returns, and I'm oftentimes telling folks, low-income families, that they usually have money that is coming back to them, but they're afraid to communicate. So I will look into what we could do to support people in applying, in essentially submitting their tax forms so that they can receive that benefit this year.
Okay, and then also I noticed in the bills that we paid, Champaign County Healthcare Consumers is getting, I think, their full, the full amount, the $21,000 or some. I mean, they're getting half of it, but we had designated $8,000 of that to be if they had office hours during the year in Urbana. So I wondered, I never heard about them opening office hours, weekly office hours in Urbana, so I wondered if they did that, where they did it, and how it's being publicized.
Okay. Well, I know that they're doing some work at Salt and Light, and I also know that they have done work in downtown Urbana, but I can basically ask Claudia for a report and send it to you. I think that, as you recall, we went from 4 payments to 2, so this time of year we're going to see half payments. We did our first half when people first signed their contracts, and now we're seeing the request for, we did our first installment. We're doing our first installment now. We'll see our second installment at the end of the fiscal year. But I'll make a note to ask Claudia to respond to your question.
Okay. Yeah, if there's regularly scheduled office hours, I think it'd be helpful for them to put it on their Facebook page or their web page or something. I looked there, I didn't see anything. But I know I've gotten several announcements about things at the Champaign Library, at the Illinois Terminal Building, things like that. But I think the only one I've seen in Urbana was last summer. There was a senior workshop or something at the library.
Okay.
But
I'm pretty sure that they're over at Salt and Light, but I can get the details for that. And we regularly send folks to healthcare consumers, and because we are in downtown, people are almost always going straight. It's like a 5-minute bus ride to downtown Champaign. So we haven't actually seen it be an onerous situation. It's much easier to get from downtown Urbana to downtown Champaign than pretty much any place in town, including out at Salt and Light. So But I can certainly get Claudia to respond to your question, okay?
Okay, if that's something we don't want to do in the future, we could not do it, but we did do it last year. We said that they would get an extra $8,000 for having office hours in Urbana.
Yeah, and it is a condition in the grant that they signed as well, so it was part, I can, provide the grant if necessary, but it was written in as a condition.
Sharice?
I wanted to know, regarding the lady that was almost evicted and everything, I don't know what it is like here in Urbana. Is there a tenants union or anything? Is there?
Absolutely.
Is there any way that you can go through the tenants union, use them also as a resource, or did you do that this time with the?
We work with the tenant union probably on at least a 3 to 4 times a week basis. We're working very closely with them. In her case, really, Land of Lincoln was the entity that was needed. She needed an attorney, a public aid attorney. So we did have there was an attorney working with her from Land of Lincoln. Basically, the landlord was in their right to evict at that time, their
Okay.
legal right. But there really is an issue of a kind of social contract, like,
Really?
if you, exactly, like,
Yeah.
you're guaranteed payment in full within 2 weeks. You're
Right.
not willing to take payment to stop eviction. And then when you say you're willing to take a payment, you basically you're not going to take multiple checks. They have to be cashier's checks. I mean, it was, my opinion, it was monkey business.
Okay. I was just wondering how that would work and what her rights were regarding this whole thing, because it just sounded just plain mean.
I think
actually.
we have a belief system that is, we have a belief system that if somebody is a senior citizen, if they're disabled, if they are not able to they're almost bed bound, and they're facing eviction, and they have an ability to pay, I think that we generally, I don't want to speak for everyone, but it seems like a common sense kind of human decency issue that you would there would be something. But actually, we need to understand that there isn't, that the way the system is set up is that there's a lot of people in very vulnerable situations. I was speaking to a participant of ours who I was concerned because she had slept in a storage unit for 3 days. She is absolutely way too disabled to sleep in a storage unit. She really could have died in the storage unit. It was in the winter, and I just found out that had happened. And I was upset that she hadn't called me and we could do something about it. And I just, I think this is one of those things where it's difficult for us to recognize, admit, and face that basically we have very vulnerable folks who are our neighbors who are ejected onto the street with absolutely no place to go. And I continue to tell this story in part because I feel like, and eventually I'd like to help people tell their own story to you so that you could hear it directly from them and you don't have to believe me.
Okay, thanks.
New business is Resolution T 2019-03-005R, which is the resolution authorizing Cunningham Township Supervisor to pay Rosecrans, formerly known as Prairie Center Health Systems, for Consolidated Social Service Funds fiscal year 2018.
So this is just briefly, essentially Prairie Center Health Systems was subsumed by Rosecrans as of January 1st, 2018. Essentially, they requested Q3 payment. They requested Q1 payment and were dispersed before they changed. They didn't request Q2 payment. They did request Q3 payment. At that time, no payment was dispersed in part because it was we went around and around trying to figure out if given that they were no longer Prairie Center, how we would make payment. Then Q4 payment was not requested. So then in their audit process, they had caught that they had requested Q3, and that was also an error on our part that we had not dispersed. According to our auditor, and what I think is generally accepted principles, we need to come to the town board to authorize this payment after the contract was over. And therefore, I'm asking for payment simply for Q3. I do have evidence that there was a staff member who provided this service who's being paid for out of this grant. They, provided documentation for the payroll for the staff member.
Is there a
And
motion?
I've actually provided that in what's below, so you can see kind of what they had supplied us.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution T 2019-03-005R. Resolution authorizing Cunningham Township Supervisor to pay res grants for Consolidated Social Service Funds FY 2018.
A second.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Sharice. Any further discussion or questions? Will the clerk please call the roll? Voice vote, did you say? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. Okay. Second item is approval of the annual town meeting agenda, which I believe was,
I passed a new agenda. The first one that you received, it said draft because our due date for any items to be added on the agenda was Friday, 5 o'clock, and nothing was turned in.
okay,
So this will be the final agenda.
so that was handed out tonight.
Correct.
Any discussion?
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Okay. Moved by Jared,
Second.
seconded by Eric. Any discussion, questions?
This,
Sharice?
I need to know what it is. I've never been to one, so could I get just some information, general
Absolutely.
information?
Yeah, so the annual meeting is held, so essentially it's a form of direct democracy that we have in the township form of government, where essentially it's a meeting of any resident of Urbana who's also a resident of Cunningham Township. Those who are residents all have a vote. And essentially, there's the town clerk calls to order, and there's an election of a moderator. So even though I'm the supervisor of the township, I don't actually lead the meeting. There's a moderator who's usually selected amongst the group, and there's an opportunity for public participation. We've seen in the past the town board meeting as an opportunity for folks to put advisory referenda on the ballot around various issues, social issues. This year, we're going to be I'll be providing the annual financial statement, and I also will be leading a discussion about the long-term financial planning of the township. That'll be a place where we can discuss some of the issues of the levy. I'll actually have, if my intern finishes his work that we discussed today, which I believe he will, I'll have poverty statistics, homelessness statistics. I'll have information about our levy going back a number of years. I'll have 50 years of information about our general assistance program in graphs and charts. I'll be able to show lots of information about what we've spent in the past and what our assistance roles have looked like, so that we could really look forward to the future and see, what do we need for the health of the township, so we can continue to be the last safety net for the poorest of the poor. And then we'll announce the next annual town meeting and adjourn. So it should be a lively discussion. I intend to do some outreach, significant outreach for the meeting, and I certainly hope that the town board members can attend and be part of that discussion, as you will be ordinary citizens at that point rather than town board members.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think Mary Alice had a hand.
Oh, Mary Alice.
I just wanted to know if it'll be recorded so that people who can't make it be able to watch it.
I'm almost positive UPTV does each year.
Yes.
So
Okay,
yeah,
great.
we'll keep it interesting, nice reality television. It's your democracy at work.
Okay. Well, with no further business
We got to vote.
Oh, yes, we do need to vote on that. Is there a motion, we had a motion by Jared, seconded by Eric. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. Now, with no further business before this meeting, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.